Be grateful you can sit here, my mother said, at Christmas dinner, after handing every single person a gift except me. My uncle chuckled from across the table. Be glad we still remember your name. 14 people laughed. I was the 15th. I wasn't laughing. I looked at the empty space in front of me, the only spot on the table with no wrapping paper, no ribbon, no card. And something clicked. Not rage. Something quieter. Something final. I smiled and said 3 words. Good to know. 2 weeks later, every one of those 14 people was standing at my door, some crying, some screaming, some begging. Because the thing about being invisible is nobody notices what you carry until you put it down. What they didn't know was that every gift under that tree, every bill keeping that roof over their heads, every dollar that made their comfortable life possible, had my name on it. And I was about to stop pretending it didn't. Before I go on, if this story resonates with you, take a moment to hit like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with what you're hearing. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is, where you are. I'd love to know. My name is Eliana. I'm 27 years old, and this is the story of how I stopped paying for a family that forgot I existed. Now let me take you back to Christmas Eve, the night everything changed. I pulled into my mother's driveway at 6:10. The house was already glowing, string lights across the gutters, a wreath on the front door, candles in every window. You'd think it was a magazine shoot. You'd never guess that every penny keeping those lights on came out of my checking account. I grabbed the dish from the passenger seat, mac and cheese, baked from scratch, because my mother had texted me 3 days earlier. Not, Merry Christmas, not, can't wait to see you. Just, bring mac and cheese. The big pan. So I did. Like I always did. When I walked through the front door, 14 family members were already scattered around the living room, cousins on the couch, Uncle Rick in the recliner with a beer, Aunt Louise refilling the punch bowl, and my little sister Megan standing next to the Christmas tree, phone out, taking a selfie with our mother. Nobody looked up. I stood in the doorway holding a 9-pound casserole dish and waited for someone, anyone, to say hello. 3 seconds. 5. 8. My mother finally glanced over Megan's shoulder. You're late. Put the dish in the kitchen. No hug. No Merry Christmas. No, thanks for driving 40 minutes after a 12-hour night shift. I walked through the living room, past my cousin Marcus, who didn't move his legs off the ottoman, past Uncle Rick, who raised his beer but didn't raise his eyes, past the Christmas tree, where a pile of beautifully wrapped gifts sat in a perfect pyramid underneath. In the kitchen, I set the dish on the counter and looked through the doorway at the dining table. 14 place settings, real plates, cloth napkins, the good glasses, and at the far end, squeezed between the wall and the kitchen doorway, a metal folding chair. I didn't have to ask who it was for. The sound of wrapping paper crinkling under the tree drifted through the house, and I remember thinking, this feels like every Christmas. I just never let myself say it out loud before. Dinner was loud and warm, for everyone else. I sat on the folding chair, which wobbled every time I reached for the bread basket, and I smiled and passed dishes and refilled my mother's water glass twice without being asked, because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. After the plates were cleared, by me, obviously, my mother stood up and walked to the Christmas tree. The room got excited. This was the moment. Diane Ingram's annual gift ceremony. She picked up the first box. For my beautiful Megan. A soft gasp from Megan as she opened it. AirPods Pro. The newest ones. $249. I knew the price because I'd seen them in my mother's Amazon cart 3 weeks ago on the account that was linked to my debit card. For my baby brother Rick. A North Face puffer jacket. Rick held it up like a trophy. $350. For cousin Sarah. You deserve this, honey. A gift card and a candle set. For Louise, my rock. A cashmere scarf. For Marcus. A watch. On and on she went. 13 gifts, each one handed over with a warm word, a hug, a little performance of generosity. I counted. 13 boxes opened, 13 smiles, 13 thank yous. Nothing in front of me, not a card, not a candy cane, not even my name. My mother sat back down and smoothed her napkin on her lap like the show was over. I heard my own voice before I realized I was speaking. Quiet, almost a whisper. Mom, did I? She didn't even turn her head. Just cut me off mid-sentence, eyes still on the table. Be grateful you can sit here. The room went silent for exactly half a second. Then Rick filled it. Be glad we still remember your name, Rick said, leaning back in his chair with that grin, the one he always wore when he was about to get a laugh at someone else's expense. And the room gave him exactly what he wanted. 14 people. Laughter. Not the sharp, cruel kind. Worse. The easy, comfortable kind. The kind that says this is normal. This is how it's always been. This is funny, because it's true. Megan looked down at her phone. She didn't laugh, but she didn't say anything either. I sat there on my folding chair and felt something I can only describe as heat. Not in my face, not embarrassment. In my chest, behind my sternum. Like a pilot light that had been flickering for years and just found gas. My hands were cold. My jaw was tight. And for the first time in 27 years, I didn't scramble to laugh along. I didn't say, oh, stop, or you guys are terrible, or any of the little scripts I'd memorized to make everyone comfortable with treating me like furniture. I looked at my mother. She was already talking to Louise about New Year's plans. I looked at Rick. He was pulling the tag off his new jacket. I looked at the empty space in front of me, the spot where a gift should have been, and I made a decision so quiet that nobody in the room noticed it happening. I picked up my water glass, took a sip, and set it down. Good to know. That's all I said. 3 words. Calm. Almost friendly. Nobody reacted. Nobody asked what I meant. Why would they? I was Eliana. I didn't make scenes. I didn't push back. I showed up. I brought the mac and cheese. I cleaned up. And I left. 2 weeks later, they'd learn what good to know actually meant. I stood up, folded the metal chair, and leaned it against the wall. Nobody noticed that either. I grabbed my coat from the pile on the armchair and pulled it on. Merry Christmas, everyone. A few people mumbled something back. One cousin waved without looking. Megan was already showing her new AirPods to Sarah. But then, from the corner of the room, I heard a small voice come through the iPad propped up on the bookshelf. My grandmother, Lorraine Harmon, 78 years old, watching the whole party from her room at the assisted living facility 30 miles away. Merry Christmas, sweetheart, she said. Her hand waved at the camera, a little shaky. Drive safe. Something cracked behind my ribs when she said that. Not because it was sad, because it was the only genuine thing anyone had said to me all night. Thanks, Grandma. Love you. I walked out the front door and didn't look back. The drive home took 40 minutes. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't call anyone. I just drove through the dark, past houses strung with lights, past families laughing in living rooms I could see through windows, and I tried to name what I was feeling. It wasn't sadness. I'd been sad before. This was something colder, clearer. I parked outside my studio apartment and sat in the car with the engine off. On the passenger seat was one Christmas card. From Nadia, my coworker. You're not too much. They're just not enough. Merry Christmas. N. I picked up my phone and opened my banking app. Scrolled through the year. Every Zelle transfer. Every urgent request. Every first of the month payment. 12 months. $14,400. Sent to Diane Ingram. I stared at that number in the glow of my phone. Engine off. December air pressing against the windows. $14,400. And, be grateful you can sit here. I didn't cry. For the first time in a long time, I didn't cry. And that scared me more than anything. To understand why I sat on that folding chair for 27 years, you need to understand who I was at 16. That was the year my mother's second husband left. Paul, Megan's father. The man my mother actually loved. He packed 2 suitcases on a Tuesday afternoon and drove to his brother's house in Nevada, and just like that, everything fell apart. The rent was late. Then it was 2 months late. The fridge went from full to half empty to bare. My mother stopped getting out of bed before noon, and 12-year-old Megan started asking me, not Mom, what was for dinner. One evening, my mother came into the kitchen while I was heating canned soup and said 5 words that became my entire operating system. You're the oldest. You understand. That was it. No family meeting, no conversation, no asking if I was okay. Just a transfer of responsibility, dropped on my shoulders like a wet coat. From that day, I cooked. I cleaned. I picked Megan up from school. I signed permission slips when my mother forgot. I got a part-time job at a sandwich shop downtown, 16 years old, scraping mayonnaise into bins at 11 p.m. on school nights, and handed my paychecks to my mother for groceries. Megan did none of this. Megan's still little. Megan needs to focus on school. I was 4 years older. Apparently that made me staff. I remember the one time I brought home something for myself. I'd won first place at the district science fair. A real plaque, not a ribbon. I carried it through the front door like it was made of gold and taped it to the refrigerator next to Megan's drawings. The next morning, it was gone. My mother had taken it down to make room for Megan's birthday party guest list. I found the plaque in the junk drawer 2 weeks later under a pile of takeout menus. I never hung anything on that fridge again. Fast forward 6 years. I'm 22, freshly licensed as a registered nurse, working my first real job on the night shift at a community hospital. Tired all the time, but proud. For the first time in my life, I had a paycheck with a comma in it. The phone rang 3 weeks into my first month. Baby, I'm in trouble. My mother's voice. The soft one. The one she used when she needed something. I'm 2 months behind on rent. They're going to file paperwork. I don't know what to do. $2,400. That's what she needed. I'd barely finished paying the deposit on my own apartment. But she was my mother, and the old script kicked in before I could even think about it. I'll send it tonight, Mom. You're a blessing, Eliana. I'll pay you back when I'm on my feet. She never paid me back. Not that month. Not ever. What she did instead was find a new emergency every 30 days. The electric bill was past due. Megan needed a laptop for school. Rick's car broke down and he needed help. Because Rick lived with my mother now, apparently, and his problems were her problems, which meant his problems were my problems. The requests stopped being requests. They became expectations. My phone would buzz on the first of every month like an alarm, and my mother's tone shifted from grateful to administrative. Send it before Friday. I need it before Friday. No, please. No, thank you. Just a deadline. I told myself this was what family did. I told myself I was lucky to be in a position to help. I told myself a lot of things at 3 a.m. between patient rounds while my bank balance dipped lower and lower, and my savings account stayed at exactly 0. The Zelle notifications became a rhythm I stopped hearing, the way you stop hearing a clock that's always ticking. Thanksgiving, the year before the Christmas that changed everything. My mother decided to host. Big dinner, the whole family, the works. She called me 2 weeks in advance. I need $800 for groceries and decorations. This is important, Eliana. The family hasn't been together in 2 years. I sent it. $800. More than a week's take-home pay. I figured at least I'd be part of something. At least there'd be a moment where she looked at me across the table and I could see something that felt like recognition. The table was beautiful. Turkey, glazed ham, 3 kinds of pie. Real centerpieces with candles and little pumpkins. My mother had outdone herself, or so everyone believed. After the meal, she stood up, clinked her glass with a fork. I just want to say something. Her voice cracked with practiced emotion. Being a single mother has been the hardest thing I've ever done. But looking at this table, at all of you, I know I did something right. I did this all by myself, and I'm proud of that. The room erupted. Applause. Aunt Louise wiped her eyes. Diane, you're amazing. I don't know how you do it. My mother pressed a hand to her chest and mouthed, "Thank you." I sat at the end of the table, not a folding chair that year, but close, and felt every word land like a brick on my sternum. She did this all by herself. All by herself. I looked at the turkey, my money, the centerpieces, my money, the house we were sitting in, my lease, my money, my name on the dotted line. And then Rick leaned across the table and said to me, grinning, "You should learn from your mother, Eliana. She never complains." I picked up my fork, stabbed a piece of pie, and smiled so hard my jaw ached. 6 months before Christmas, July, the hottest week of the year and the one time, the only time. I tried to say something. I'd been up for 20 hours. Double shift. My feet were swollen. My scrub smelled like antiseptic. And when I got home, I sat on the edge of my bed and opened my banking app out of habit. The numbers stared back at me, and for one reckless moment, I let myself feel what I'd been burying. I called my mother. "Mom, I need to talk to you about the money." "What about it?" "I've been sending every month for 3 years, and I think I just need to cut back a little. I'm trying to save for—" She cut me off like I'd said something profane. "So you're going to let your mother be homeless? After everything I sacrificed?" "Mom, that's not what I'm—" Phase 2. The tears. I could hear them activate on the other end of the line like someone flipped a switch. "I gave up my life for you girls. I put food on the table when your father walked away. And this is what I get?" I tried one more time. "I'm not saying I'll stop completely. I just—" Phase 3. The weapon she knew I couldn't block. "Fine." Her voice went flat. "Ice. I'll tell the family. I'll tell them you refuse to help your own mother. Let them see what kind of daughter you are." And there it was. The thing I feared more than an empty bank account. The family verdict. The label. Selfish. Ungrateful. Bad daughter. I closed my eyes. The fight drained out of me like water through a crack. "Never mind, Mom. I'll send it this Friday." After the call, I sat on the bathroom floor with the faucet running so my roommate wouldn't hear me cry. That was 6 months ago. 6 months of silence, 6 more transfers, 6 more emergencies. And then came Christmas Eve, the folding chair, the empty spot, and 3 words that would change everything. December 26th, 6 a.m. No sleep. I sat at the small table in my studio apartment with a cup of coffee I didn't drink and my laptop open to my bank's website. The screen glow was the only light in the room. I downloaded every statement from the past 4 years. 48 months. 48 PDFs. I sent them to the printer at the corner of my desk, the little inkjet I'd bought secondhand for nursing school, and listened to it pull page after page after page. Then I sat down with a yellow highlighter and went through every sheet. Zelle to Diane Ingram. $1,200. January. Zelle to Diane Ingram. $1,200. February. Zelle to Diane Ingram. $1,200. March. Page after page, yellow line after yellow line. Some months had extra. The emergencies. $300 for Rick's car. $150 for Megan's textbooks. $200 because the heating bill was double this month. When I finished, I added it up on the back of the last page with a pen. Checked it twice, then wrote the number on a sticky note and pressed it onto my refrigerator. $57,600. I stood there staring at it the way you stare at a car accident. That number, printed in my own handwriting on a yellow square, was 4 years of my life. 4 years of night shifts and double shifts and protein bars for dinner because I couldn't afford groceries after the first of the month transfer. $57,600. And she bought everyone a gift except me. I thought about the AirPods, the North Face jacket, the cashmere scarf, the watch. 13 gifts, probably $2,000 to $3,000 total. Where did that money come from? My mother worked part-time at a thrift store. She didn't have $3,000 to spare. unless she did, because I'd been handing it to her. The printer had gone quiet. The coffee had gone cold. And something inside me had gone very, very still. December 27th. Night shift. The ER was slow for once, a miracle in winter. And Nadia and I ended up in the break room at 2 a.m. with vending machine coffee and 15 minutes to kill. Nadia Cole was the closest thing I had to a best friend, 29, sharp, no filter, the kind of nurse who could start an IV in a moving ambulance and tell you exactly what you needed to hear while doing it. She'd given me the only Christmas card I received this year. "So," she said, stirring powdered creamer into her cup. "How was Christmas?" I'd planned to say, "Fine." I'd practiced the word in the car on the way to work. But when I opened my mouth, what came out instead was everything. The folding chair, the gifts, my mother's voice, Rick's joke, the laughter, the number on the sticky note. My hands shook around the coffee cup. Nadia noticed. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she set down her cup and looked at me like a surgeon looks at an X-ray. "Eliana, that's not family. That's a subscription they forgot to thank you for." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. She asked 2 questions. Direct, no ceremony. "Whose name is on the lease?" I blinked. "Mine. I signed it when Mom's credit was too low to qualify." "And does your family know you're the one paying for everything?" "No. Mom tells everyone she handles it herself." Nadia leaned back in her chair. The vending machine hummed behind her. "Then you have 2 things they don't know about, the bank statements and the lease. And that's not revenge, Eliana. That's just the truth." The break room was quiet, just the hum of the vending machine and the faint beep of a monitor down the hall. But inside my head, for the first time in years, something was clicking into place. December 28th. My day off. I spent it doing something I should have done 4 years ago. I pulled the document box from the back of my closet, the one I kept tax forms, nursing certifications, and everything else I filed and forgot about. Near the bottom, in a manila folder, I found it. The lease. Dated 4 years ago. 2 pages, blue ink signatures, apartment management company logo in the top corner. Tenant, Eliana Ingram. Authorized occupants, Diane Ingram, Megan Ingram. Rick Harmon was nowhere on the document. He had moved in sometime the second year. Just staying for a few weeks, that turned into permanent. No one ever updated the paperwork. No one ever asked. I unfolded the pages on my kitchen table and read every line. Then I picked up my phone and called the property management office. The receptionist transferred me to the property manager, a woman named Patricia Leong. Professional. Calm. The kind of voice that read, "Contracts for a living." "Ms. Ingram, how can I help you?" "I'd like to ask about my options regarding the lease at Unit 14. Specifically, what happens if I choose not to renew?" A brief pause, the sound of keys clicking. "You are the sole leaseholder on that unit, Ms. Ingram. Your current term expires January 31st. If you wish not to renew, you need to submit a 30-day written notice. We'll send formal notification to all listed occupants." "And if someone living there who isn't on the lease, if they refuse to leave?" "Anyone not on the lease has no legal standing to remain after the term expires. That would be handled through standard procedures." I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat there looking at the lease, the bank statements, and the calendar on my phone. January 31st. 33 days away. 33 days. And the woman who told me to be grateful I could sit in her house was sitting in mine. December 29th. I drove 30 miles to Greenfield Assisted Living with a small bouquet of carnations and a container of homemade brownies. My grandmother's room was warm and smelled like lavender hand lotion. She was sitting in her recliner by the window when I walked in, reading glasses low on her nose, a crossword puzzle in her lap, the TV playing some Christmas movie with the volume turned down. Lorraine Harmon, 78 years old. The only person in my family who had ever looked at me like I was enough. "There's my girl," she said, and her face lit up in a way my mother's never had. I sat on the edge of her bed, and she asked how Christmas went, And I tried. I really tried. To say it was fine. But her eyes caught mine, and there was no lying to this woman. There never had been. So I told her everything. She listened without moving. When I got to the part about the folding chair, her jaw tightened. When I got to Rick's comment, her hand gripped the arm of the recliner. When I finished, she took off her glasses and cleaned them slowly, the way she always did when she was choosing her words. I knew Diane favored Megan, she said quietly. I've told her. More than once. But I didn't know you were paying for all of it, sweetheart. She told me she was managing on her own. I pulled up the bank statements on my phone and held it out to her. She adjusted her glasses and scrolled through the screen, line by line. Her hand trembled. Not from age this time. $57,000. Her voice was barely a whisper, and she told me she was managing on her own. She set the phone down and took both my hands. Her grip was stronger than I expected. You listen to me, Eliana. You don't owe anyone for the privilege of being mistreated. And if you need me to say that in front of the whole family, I will. Behind us, the TV played silent scenes of a family opening presents around a fireplace. Neither of us looked. December 30th. My shift ended at 6 a.m. The sun wasn't up yet. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot with the engine off and the heater fading. I opened the Notes app on my phone and started a list. Things I currently do for my family. Rent. $1,200 per month. Utilities. Approximately $150 per month. Random emergencies. Approximately $200 per month average. Organize Thanksgiving dinner. Organize Christmas dinner logistics. Buy gifts on behalf of my mother and deliver them. Fix whatever Rick breaks. Then I made a second list. Things my family currently does for me. I stared at the blank space under that heading for a long time. There it was. 2 lists. One full, one empty. 4 years of evidence distilled into the length of a phone screen. I didn't hate my mother. I want to be clear about that. Even after everything, I didn't hate her. I hated what I'd become in her story. The invisible engine that kept the lights on so she could stand in the glow and take credit. But I couldn't pay $1,200 a month to sit on a folding chair anymore. I couldn't fund a performance I wasn't even cast in. The plan was simple. 4 steps. Stop sending money. Starting January 1st. Don't renew the lease. Submit the 30-day notice through Ms. Leong. Send the bank statements to Megan. Not to punish her, but because she deserved to know where her life had actually been coming from. And the last step? The hardest one? Do nothing else. Don't argue. Don't explain. Don't chase anyone. Just let the truth and the consequences arrive on their own schedule. I typed one more line at the bottom of the note. If they ask why, tell the truth. But don't knock on anyone's door. I put the phone down and started the car. The sky was turning gray at the edges. It felt like the first morning of something. At this point, I kept asking myself one thing. Why did I wait so long? 4 years. $57,000? And it took a missing Christmas gift for me to finally see the whole picture. Maybe I already knew. Maybe I just didn't want it to be true. Have you ever had that moment where you suddenly realized you'd been the one funding your own mistreatment? Tell me in the comments. I want to know I'm not the only one. January 1st, New Year's Day. For the past 4 years, this was the day I'd open Zelle and send the first transfer of the month. By now, it was muscle memory. Wake up, coffee, send $1,200 to Diane Ingram. Go about my day like it was normal. Like paying your mother's rent while she pretends she does it herself was just what Tuesdays looked like. This time, I opened the app, stared at the screen for 10 seconds, and closed it. No transfer. No explanation. No warning. At 9 a.m., I drove to the property management office. Ms. Leong was there. Navy blazer, reading glasses on a chain, a desk so organized it made my nursing station look like a crime scene. I sat across from her and slid the form across the desk. I'd like to submit my 30-day notice of non-renewal. She read it over, checked my identification, and pulled up the account on her computer. This will be effective January 31st. We'll send certified notice to the unit within 5 business days informing all occupants. Is there anything I need to provide? A reason? She looked up from the screen. No, Ms. Ingram. It's your lease. You don't need a reason. I signed the form. She handed me a copy. I folded it and put it in the folder I'd brought, the one that now held 4 years of bank statements, the original lease, and the notice. 4 years of my life pressed flat between manila cardboard. When I got back in my car, I sat for a moment with the folder on my lap. I expected to feel relief, or fear, or guilt. What I actually felt was strange, like taking off shoes that had been 2 sizes too small for 4 years and realizing my feet were a shape I didn't recognize anymore. The certified letter would arrive at my mother's door on January 5th. 5 days. A very quiet bomb with a very official return address, January 2nd. This was the part I almost didn't do. Megan was 23. She was finishing her last year of college, the degree my mother claimed to be funding through years of savings and sacrifice, the degree that was actually funded by the financial cushion I provided every month so my mother never had to choose between rent and tuition. Megan didn't know that, and part of me wanted to keep it that way because knowing would hurt her. And despite everything, I still didn't want my sister to hurt. But she deserved the truth. Not my version, not my mother's version. The documented, line-by-line, no-spin truth. I opened my email. Subject line, something you should know. I attached the scanned bank statements, all 48 pages, highlights and all. Then I typed the shortest email of my life. I'm not asking for anything. I just think you deserve to see where the money came from. Love, E. I hit send. The whoosh sound from the email app filled my apartment for half a second, and then silence. Heavy, permanent silence. I put the phone face down on the counter and waited. 2 hours. Nothing. 4 hours. Nothing. I went to work. Drove to the hospital. Clocked in. Took vitals. Changed an IV bag. Checked my phone in the break room at midnight like a teenager waiting for a text back. Nothing. Then, 1:47 a.m. My phone lit up. A text from Megan. 4 words. Is this real? My thumbs hovered. I typed back. Every line is from my bank. You can verify the Zelle transactions. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, I need to think. And then nothing. For days. I set the phone down and went back to my patients. But the question sat in my chest like a stone. Would Megan stand with the truth? Or would she run back to the version that kept her comfortable? January 3rd, 8:14 p.m. I was on my couch eating leftover soup when my phone rang. The caller ID read, Mom. And for 4 years that word had made my stomach clench like a fist. This time, I picked up on the 3rd ring and set the phone on speaker. Hey, honey. Sweet. Light. The voice she used when she needed something but wanted to seem like she didn't. I think there was an issue with the transfer this month. My account didn't get anything. There's no issue, Mom. I'm not sending money anymore. Silence. 3 full seconds. I could hear her television in the background. Some game show. And then, even that seemed to go quiet. Excuse me? The sweetness was gone. You're going to let me lose this house? After I raised you? You didn't raise me, Mom. I raised myself while paying your bills. I have the statements to prove it. A sharp breath. Then the pivot I'd heard 100 times. Gears shifting. A new weapon loading. What statements? You're being dramatic. You helped a little here and there. That's what family does. $57,000 in 4 years is not a little here and there. We both know that. Another silence. Shorter this time. I could almost hear her calculating, running through the playbook, looking for the tool that had always worked before. And then she found it. Fine. Cold. Flat. A door slamming shut. I'll tell everyone what you're doing. Everyone will know what kind of daughter you are. And there it was. The threat that had kept me obedient since I was 16. The family verdict. The public shame. Except this time, for the first time, I had an answer. Go ahead, Mom. I'll send them the bank statements. The line went dead. No goodbye. Just the abrupt beep of a call ended by someone who, for the first time in 4 years, didn't have a script for what just happened. January 4th. The group chat exploded at 9 in the morning. I was getting ready for my shift when my phone started pinging. Rapid fire, the kind of notification avalanche that makes the phone buzz itself across the counter. The family group text. 31 members. I never posted in it, but I never left it either. Force of habit. Or maybe masochism. My mother had sent the first message at 8:47 a.m. I'm heartbroken. Eliana told me she's cutting me off financially. I don't know what I did wrong. I've always tried to be a good mother. Then the flood. Aunt Louise, 8:49. Eliana, how could you do this to your mother? She's done everything for you girls. Cousin Sarah, 8:52. That's so sad, Diane. You don't deserve this. Marcus, 8:55. That's cold. She's your mom. Rick, 9:01. I always knew she was selfish. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That last one landed like a slap. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He was talking about my father, the man who left before I was born. The wound my mother had spent 27 years making sure never healed. 23 messages in 2 hours. 23 people who had never once asked me how I was doing, never once questioned where Diane's money came from, never once noticed the folding chair. All suddenly experts on what kind of daughter I should be. Not a single one asked for my side. I read every message. My hands shook. Not from fear. From the specific, scorching anger of being tried in absentia by people who didn't have a single fact. I didn't reply. I didn't type a single word. What I did was screenshot every message one by one and save them to a folder on my phone. Because the truth was coming. It just wasn't coming today. January 5th. The certified letter from the property management office arrived at my mother's door. I know the exact moment she opened it because my phone rang at 4:22 p.m., and the voice on the other end wasn't my mother's careful performance voice, or her guilt voice, or her cold threat voice. It was something I'd never heard before. Panic. What is this? She was breathing like she'd been running. You're evicting me? Your own mother? I'm not evicting you, Mom. I'm not renewing my lease, the one I signed because your credit was too low, the one I've been paying for 4 years. This is my home. No, Mom, it's my lease. It always was. I could hear paper rustling, the notice being turned over and over in her hands as if reading it again would change the words on the page. Tenant non-renewal. Eliana Ingram. Effective January 31st. You can't do this. Her voice cracked. Not with sadness. With the sound of something she'd always controlled suddenly slipping out of her grip. I have nowhere to go. You have 26 days, Mom. That's what the notice says. I'm calling a lawyer. Go ahead. They'll tell you the same thing Ms. Leong told me. She started crying then. Full, shaking sobs. And for one terrible second, the old instinct kicked in. The 16-year-old inside me lunged for the phone, ready to say, "Never mind. I'll fix it. I'll send the money, I'm sorry." But I held still. Because I'd heard these tears before. I'd heard them in July when I tried to cut back. I'd heard them at every emergency. And every time, they came with a price tag. These weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of a woman who just realized the ATM had a limit. The call ended. I set the phone down and noticed my hands were steady. January 6th. My phone rang at 7 in the morning, a number I recognized but had never seen call me. Uncle Rick. In all 4 years of living rent-free in a house I paid for, Rick Harmon had never once dialed my number. Not on my birthday. Not when I graduated nursing school. Not on any of the holidays where he sat across from me eating food I'd funded. But today, he found it. Listen here. No hello, no, hey Eliana. Just Rick. Full volume, like he was yelling at a bartender. I don't know what game you're playing, but you need to fix this. Now. Uncle Rick, your name isn't on the lease. It never was. You weren't even supposed to be living there. Silence. The kind of silence that sounds like someone running headfirst into a wall they didn't see. What does that mean? It means, when the lease ends, you need to find somewhere to go. Just like Mom. The bluster drained out of his voice like water out of a bathtub. What replaced it was something small and whiny. A tone I'd never heard from the man who loved making rooms laugh at my expense. I'm almost 50, Eliana. Where am I supposed to go? You're going to throw your uncle out on the street? I let that hang in the air for a beat. Then I said it. 6 days ago you couldn't remember my name. Now you know my phone number. Dead air. Then a click. He hung up without another word. I put the phone down and poured a glass of water. Took a sip. Set it on the counter next to the sticky note that still read $57,600. Rick wasn't laughing anymore, and for once, neither was anyone else. January 7th. My mother did what she always did best. She took control of the story. I found out through Megan, who sent me a text at 6 p.m. Mom is on a call with everyone. She's crying, telling them you're making her homeless. I could picture it perfectly. Diane Ingram on FaceTime with 12 family members, tissues in hand, voice trembling, every word calibrated. I'd watched this performance my entire life. The victim monologue, the single mother martyrdom speech, the slow, devastating pivot to, after everything I've done. Her version, according to what Megan overheard. Eliana was angry about not getting a Christmas gift. Eliana was being petty. Eliana was kicking her mother and uncle out on the street in the dead of winter because of a grudge. No mention of $57,000. No mention of the lease. No mention of 4 years of monthly transfers. The family bought it wholesale. Aunt Louise called me at 6:38 p.m. You should be ashamed of yourself. Your mother is shaking. Cousin Sarah texted. I can't believe you'd do this to your own family. Marcus sent a single message. Not cool, Eliana. Rick, predictably, chimed in on the group chat. I told you all she was trouble. 8 missed calls in 1 hour. I watched the names flash across my screen one by one. People who had never called to check on me, who had never asked how my shifts were going, who had never noticed I was the one writing the checks. All suddenly desperate to tell me what kind of person I was. I picked up the phone, flipped it face down on the counter, and went to make dinner. My mother was winning the narrative. For now. But she'd made one critical mistake. She called everyone in the family except the one person who already knew the truth. She hadn't called Grandma Lorraine. Not yet. January 8th, 11 p.m. I was lacing up my sneakers for the night shift when my phone rang. Megan. I almost didn't answer. Part of me had already filed my sister under lost cause. She'd had the bank statements for 6 days and hadn't said a real word about them. I figured silence was her answer. But I picked up. And the voice on the other end wasn't the Megan I was used to. The one who smiled through everything, who went along to get along, who never questioned the version of reality our mother handed her like a wrapped gift. This Megan sounded like she'd been crying for hours. Eliana. I read everything, every single line. I sat down on the edge of my bed and said nothing. Waited. Did you really send Mom over $1,000 every month? For 4 years? Yes. And she... Megan's voice broke. She told me she paid for everything herself. She said my tuition support came from her savings. I closed my eyes. She doesn't have savings, Megan. She has my checking account. The sound that came through the phone was raw. Not the pretty crying my mother did for an audience. This was messy, real, the sound of someone whose entire foundation had just cracked down the middle. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I didn't want you to feel guilty. I wanted you to have what I didn't. But I can't afford it anymore, Megan. Not the money. The silence. She was quiet for a long time. Then, what do you need me to do? I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to know the truth. Okay. A breath. Then softly, can I still call you? Like after this? Outside my window, the January wind pushed against the glass. Cold night. Long shift ahead. But for the first time in years, a phone call with someone in my family ended without me feeling smaller. Yeah, Meg, you can call me. January 9th. The mistake my mother didn't know she was making. With the rest of the family firmly on her side, Diane did what any desperate general does when the battle's going well. She went for the nuclear option. She called the one person whose word carried more weight than anyone else's in the entire Harmon family. She called Grandma Lorraine. I know exactly what happened because my grandmother told me afterward, word for word, in the quiet, precise way she tells everything. Diane called crying. Mama, Eliana is throwing me out on the street. I don't know what to do. I've sacrificed everything for that girl, and she's treating me like trash. Grandma Lorraine let her finish, didn't interrupt, didn't make a sound. Then she asked one question. Diane, who pays the rent on that house? A beat of confusion. I do. What does that have to do with... Diane, I've seen the bank statements. My grandmother said the silence that followed was the longest 3 seconds of her life, then 5, then 8. What? What statements? The ones that show Eliana has been paying $1,200 a month for 4 years. To you. Is that true, Diane? Nothing. No answer. No denial. No tears. Just dead air and the faint sound of my mother breathing. Your silence is all the answer I need. Then, like a switch flipping, my mother's voice came back loud, sharp, desperate. She's lying, Mama. She showed you fake. She manipulated. You don't understand what she's... And my grandmother, 78 years old, sitting in a recliner in a room that smelled like lavender, said the sentence that ended the conversation. I raised you better than this, but apparently I didn't raise you well enough. Click. The phone went silent. And for the first time in Diane Ingram's life, the highest authority in the family had chosen a side, and it wasn't hers. January 10th, Sunday, 9 in the morning. I'd just come off a 12-hour shift. My scrubs were in the hamper, my hair was still damp from the shower, and I was standing barefoot in my kitchen pouring coffee into the one good mug I owned when I heard it. Not knocking, pounding. 3 heavy hits against my front door that rattled the deadbolt. Then my mother's voice, raw, wrecked. Nothing like the composed woman who hosted Christmas dinner 2 weeks ago. Eliana, open this door. We need to talk. A second voice. Rick. You can't hide in there forever. I set the coffee down and walked to the door. Looked through the peephole. 4 people in the hallway of my apartment building. My mother, front and center. Eyes swollen and red. In her left hand, the white envelope from the property management office, crumpled now, like she'd been gripping it for days. Her coat was buttoned wrong. Rick, 1 step behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. The bravado was there, but his eyes kept darting toward the stairwell like he was calculating his exit. Aunt Louise, off to the side. She wasn't angry. She looked confused, like someone who'd walked into the middle of a movie and couldn't figure out the plot. And Marcus, standing farthest from the door, hands in his pockets, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. My mother pounded again. I know you're in there. Please. Please. She said please. I'd waited 27 years to hear that word from her. And now that it was here, pressed against my door like a fist, it didn't sound like an apology. It sounded like a demand, wearing a mask. I looked at my coffee on the counter, looked at the door, breathed. Then I opened it. I stood in the doorway. Not inside, not outside, right on the line. My mother started immediately. She'd had an audience, Louise and Marcus, and I could see the performance activate like a reflex. Eliana, I don't know what I did to deserve this. Her hand went to her chest, fingers splayed, the way she always positioned them when she wanted to look wounded. I gave you everything. I've been a single mother for over 20 years, and now you want to throw me out like garbage? Rick, right on cue. This is what happens when you spoil a child. I didn't look at Rick. I looked at Louise, then Marcus. Aunt Louise, Marcus, can I ask you something? Louise blinked. Marcus shifted his weight. Does anyone in this family know who pays the rent on Mom's house? Silence. Louise glanced at Diane. Diane's jaw tightened. No one? Because Mom told everyone she handles it herself. I do handle. I held up the manila folder. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Mom, I have 4 years of bank statements in this folder. Every Zelle transfer. Every month. $1,200 from my account to yours. Do you want me to show them? My mother's face did something I'd never seen before. The performance. The tears. The trembling lip. The hand on the chest. All of it froze. Like someone had pulled the plug on a machine mid-cycle. Her skin went pale. Actually, pale. The blood left her cheeks in real time. Louise stepped forward. What is she talking about, Diane? She's lying. My mother's voice came back too loud, too fast. She sent a little money here and there. $57,600, Mom. I said it the way I read vitals to a doctor. Calm, clinical, exact. That's not here and there. The hallway went quiet. I could hear someone's television playing 2 floors down. My mother was mid-sentence. Something about context, about how I was twisting things, when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. FaceTime. Grandma Lorraine. I looked at the screen. Then I looked at the 4 people in my hallway. Hold on, I said. Someone wants to speak. I accepted the call and turned the phone around so the screen faced outward. My grandmother's face filled the frame, sitting in her recliner, reading glasses low, eyes sharp and steady. The room behind her was quiet. The TV was off. She looked through the screen at her daughter, her son, her niece, and her nephew. And when she spoke, her voice was slow, deliberate, and louder than I'd heard it in years. I can hear all of you from here, so let me say this once. Every sound in the hallway stopped. Louise's hand froze halfway to her mouth. Marcus didn't blink. Rick looked at the floor. My mother stared at the screen like she was watching a door close in slow motion. Diane, I love you. But I've seen the bank statements. Every page. Eliana has been paying your rent, your utilities, and your emergencies for 4 years. She paid for the food at Thanksgiving. She paid for the gifts you handed out at Christmas, every single one. She paid for everything, and you couldn't even give her a card. Nobody breathed. My mother whispered, Mama, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. My grandmother's voice didn't waver. You took that girl's money, told everyone it was yours, and then humiliated her in front of the whole family. On Christmas. Louise's hand covered her mouth completely now. Marcus took a step back. Rick still hadn't looked up. Eliana doesn't owe you an apology. Grandma Lorraine's eyes found the camera. Found me. You owe her one. The hallway was silent. Absolutely, completely silent. Just the sound of my grandmother breathing through the phone speaker and the muffled hum of a building full of people who had no idea that in apartment 4B, an entire family was standing still. My grandmother's face watched from the phone screen. No one had moved. Then my mother did what she always did when every other weapon failed. She tried to rewrite the story one more time. So this is what you want? Her voice shook, but not with grief, with fury dressed as heartbreak. To destroy this family? I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in my life, I didn't see the woman I'd been trying to earn love from. I saw a woman who had been given everything and called it nothing. No, Mom, I don't want to destroy anything. I just can't keep building something with my money that doesn't have room for me. She opened her mouth. I didn't wait. I turned to Rick. Uncle Rick, you have until the 31st to figure out your living situation. That's 3 weeks. Rick's mouth opened, closed. No joke came out, no punchline, nothing. The comedian had finally run out of material. I looked at Louise and Marcus. If anyone in this family wants to talk to me after today, my door is open. But I won't be sending money, organizing holidays, or sitting on a folding chair anymore. Louise's eyes were wet. Marcus nodded once. Small, but I saw it. I took a step back into my apartment. My hand was on the door. I love you, Mom. But I love myself enough to stop paying for a seat at a table that was never set for me. And I closed the door. Not a slam. Not a dramatic crash. Just a quiet, steady click. The sound of a lock engaging for the first time in 4 years. Through the door I heard nothing for a long moment. Then footsteps. Shuffling. Someone crying softly. Then the stairwell door opened and closed, and the hallway was empty. I stood with my back against the door, both hands flat against the wood, and breathed. It was over. And I was still standing. After I closed that door, I stood there for a full minute, hand still on the knob, wondering if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life or the best decision. And honestly, I still wonder sometimes. Do you think I went too far? Or not far enough? Because I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just stopped paying. Was that wrong? Let me know in the comments. I've read every single one, and some of your stories hit harder than mine. January 31st. The lease expired. I wasn't there when they moved out. I didn't need to be. Ms. Leong confirmed by email that the unit was vacated on time and the keys were returned to the office. Professional, clean, final. My mother moved in with Aunt Louise, but Louise, who had now heard the full truth, who had seen the bank statements, who had watched my grandmother dismantle Diane's story in real time, was no longer the sympathetic shoulder my mother expected. You can stay, Louise told her, according to Megan, but you're paying your share. I'm not running a charity. Diane Ingram, who hadn't paid rent in 4 years, was now splitting utilities with a woman who used to worship her. The dynamic had shifted, and it wasn't shifting back. Rick ended up at a friend's place across town, a single-wide trailer with no spare bedroom. He slept on a pull-out couch. No recliner, no beer fridge, no 55-inch TV, no holiday table where he could sit in a paid-for house and crack jokes about the person paying for it. My mother tried one more play. She called a legal aid hotline, convinced she had grounds to dispute the lease termination. The attorney listened, asked a few questions, and delivered the verdict in under 3 minutes. The lease was never in your name, ma'am. The leaseholder followed all proper notification procedures. There's nothing to contest here. She hung up and didn't call another lawyer. I know all of this because Megan told me, piece by piece, over the next few weeks, in phone calls that were short at first and gradually got longer. She was keeping me informed, not out of spite toward our mother, but because for the first time in her life, she wanted to be the kind of sister who told the truth. The old house sat empty by February. I never drove past it. Mid-February, a Tuesday. My phone rang during my lunch break, and when I saw Megan's name, I didn't feel the old dread. I felt something closer to curiosity. Hey, she said. And then, before I could ask how she was doing, I got a part-time job at the campus bookstore. It's not much, like $11 an hour, but I'm paying for my own textbooks this semester. I sat in the break room, phone to my ear, and smiled, the kind of smile that sneaks up on you before you can stop it. That's really good, Meg. It's embarrassing, honestly. I'm 23, and just now buying my own books. It's not embarrassing. It's a start. She was quiet for a second. Then, I'm sorry I never stood up for you, Eliana. I'm sorry I sat there every Christmas and Thanksgiving and never said anything. I didn't know the full picture, but I also didn't ask. And that's on me. I leaned back against the plastic chair and stared at the break room ceiling. You were a kid, Megan. I don't blame you. I'm not a kid anymore, and I don't want to be the person who benefits from someone else's silence. That sentence. I can't explain what it did to me. It was the first time in my life someone in my family acknowledged what I'd lost, without me having to prove it with a spreadsheet first. We talked for over an hour. About school. About her new job. About a boy she was seeing who actually treated her well. Normal things. Sister things. The kind of conversation we'd never had because there was always a performance to maintain, a narrative to protect, a mother in the middle directing traffic. Can we have dinner next week? She asked. Just us? I'd like that. When I hung up, Nadia was standing in the doorway of the break room with 2 coffees, grinning. That sounded different, she said. It was. Late February. I was folding laundry when my phone rang. The caller ID said Mom, and I stood there for 3 rings, a pillowcase in one hand, deciding. I answered. Her voice was different, tired, stripped of its usual polish, like she'd rehearsed something and run out of energy halfway through. Eliana, I've been thinking. Maybe I wasn't fair to you. At Christmas. I held the phone and waited. The laundry sat warm in the basket. I just want us to be a family again. I miss you. I miss the way things were. The way things were. The version where I paid and she performed, and no one asked questions. I let the silence do the talking for a moment. Then she added it. The line I knew was coming, because the pattern never changed. Can you help me with the deposit for a new place? Just this once, and we can start over. There it was, tucked inside the apology like a fishhook inside a worm. The sorry was real enough on the surface, but underneath it was the same request it had always been. Money first. Reconciliation second. Boundaries never. Mom, I hear you, and I want a relationship with you too. But it can't start with another check. Silence. So that's a no? That's a boundary. More silence. The kind that fills up with everything neither person is saying. Then quietly, you've changed. Yes, I said. I have. The call ended. No door slam, no tears, no performance. Just 2 women on either side of a line that one of them had drawn and the other one couldn't cross. I set the phone down and finished folding the pillowcase, put it in the closet, made the bed. It wasn't a victory. It wasn't a punishment. It was just the truth, spoken out loud, without apology. And for the first time, that was enough. March. My studio apartment is small, 400 square feet. One window that faces east, so the morning light comes in early and lands on the kitchen counter where I drink my coffee before my shift. The refrigerator has 3 things on it. Nadia's Christmas card, still taped to the top corner. A selfie of me and Megan from last week. Dinner at a Thai place near her campus. Both of us laughing about something I can't remember now, but I remember the feeling. And my bank statement from February. The first month in 4 years where I saved $1,200 instead of sending it away. I don't hate my mother. I want that to be clear. I don't sit around imagining her struggling. I don't celebrate her discomfort. She's still my mother, and there's a part of me that will always wish she'd chosen to see me, but I can't fund invisibility anymore. I can't write the checks and sit on the folding chair and call it love. We're not estranged. Not exactly. I told her my door is open, and it is. But the terms have changed. No money, no guilt, no performances. If she wants to see me, she can come to a restaurant and have coffee. She hasn't taken me up on it yet. Grandma Lorraine calls me every Sunday now. Just us. No Diane in the middle. Last week she told me she was proud of me, and I had to pull over because I couldn't see the road. Rick hasn't called. I don't expect him to. Megan texts me almost every day. She sent me a photo yesterday of her first paycheck stub from the bookstore, $93.47. She'd circled it in red pen and written, "My money, my name." I taped it to the fridge. I used to think love meant giving until there was nothing left. Now I know. Love that only takes is not love. It's a lease agreement. And I finally let mine expire. That's my story. Every number was real. Every silence was real. And every door I closed with love, not revenge. If you've ever been the invisible one in your family, the one who pays but never gets thanked, the one who shows up but never gets a seat, I want you to know something. You're allowed to stop. You're not selfish. You're surviving. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe. There are more stories like this one linked in the description below, and I think you'll connect with them the same way. Leave a comment and tell me, what's a boundary you wish you had set sooner? I'll be reading every single one. See you in the next one.